Laurie Stewart's our first speaker. She's going to get us going this morning. Laurie led the team that took eBay international. 22 countries in 2 years, advisor to the CEO on international strategy. These are big and exciting ventures to be part of. So Laurie's a great person. We're not going to give her enough time to tell that fascinating story this morning in enough detail, because Laurie's got lots of good stories. So catch her on breaks and all sorts of stuff. One of the fun people to follow. She was a key member on the PayPal acquisition team and is the founder of the Awesome Foundation Calgary. She's also, it's not on her bio here. Why is it not on the bio here that you're doing the A100 thing, Laurie? Well, it should be, yeah. Laurie's also very active with the A100, a group of up to 100, I don't think we've quite filled the membership role yet. Successful tech entrepreneurs who help out startups, do a lot of mentoring in Alberta, and that's a great group too. She's now the Senior Strategy Advisor with Innovate Calgary, and was part of the 2010 Heat and Enchi mayoral team, which was an absolutely awesome exercise both in democracy and in making sure that we didn't get robbed forward and using modern technology. So if there's a compelling argument for social media, I think that's got to be part of it. So with that, I'll ask Laurie up to the stage. Laurie.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. I heard because it was a morning session that there might not be many people here, so I'm glad that that was untrue. Okay, the screen down here isn't in sync. Oh, okay, no worries. So thank you to Robin and Sabera and Megan for organizing this and inviting me. But when Megan invited me and then I said yes, I learned later on that she had me in the morning session. And I said to Megan, I spent my career in California. We don't start before 10 a.m. ever. And as Pete Garrett knows, that's still true. So it's not that I don't like mornings, it's just that we don't know each other really well. So I am here, I do have my coffee, and it is nice. I didn't know that, the sun came up and put pretty colors in the mountains. It's amazing the stuff that I'm going to get up early. Anyway, so I want to talk to you today a little bit about dreaming big and taking risk. Oops, yeah, I need this. So I spent my misspent youth in and around the Ottawa area, and this was my last summer in Ottawa. And you'll see in Ottawa, the water is supposed to run down the middle of the city, and we have buildings that are a little more than 100 years old. So that was my last summer, and then this was my last winter. Oops, went too fast. So the ice storm of '98. Happened to coincide with the big brain drain of Canadian talent going to the tech boom in California. And I managed to get myself caught up in that. Had a startup in Ottawa and in an engineering company that we took through to building out a software SCADA system because nothing supported what we were doing. Exited that company to British Gas Direct Energy and found myself on a number of headhunter lists. So I lived through the ice storm of '98, which was called the biggest natural disaster in Canadian history. And the second biggest natural disaster was the Calgary flood. So is anyone here from Vancouver? So just rest assured I'm not moving to Vancouver. Okay, so you're safe for a little while. So I ended up here in one of the most amazing cities in the world during the time when it was really the Wild West. You did not need a business plan to start a business or get a pile of VC money. And there were crazy things going on at that point in time, like sock puppets. So Pets.com got $50 million in venture capital. They went from being, and they IPO'd on that. So they went from being public to liquidating in 9 months. It's like, now that's something to be proud of. Pets.com had a really, really interesting business model. They were selling everything at 20% below cost. They were supplying all the warehouses for it, and they were shipping for free. What part of that business model would cause you any concern? Apparently not the guys at Amazon and Hummer Lindblad and a few others that gave them $50 million. But fortunately, I was lucky enough to end up here. And this was 1999. And in those days, eBay was a really small company. We occupied just the bottom floor of that one building that you see there. And international was basically an afterthought. It was, okay, eBay core, as the eBay.com was called, was obviously the revenue driver. And then there was this thought that Meg had, our CEO, that we should just roll out around the world using English and American dollars. People will just have to get used to it. And so then I entered the picture. I was like, no, you can't actually do this. So my international expertise at that point in time was that I worked with my original startup. We'd done a whole bunch of rebuilds after the first Bush Gulf War in Iran, on rebuilding control centers for some of the bombed oil wells, and then working in Germany on some fire protection systems. So that was the extent of my international experience. But in 1999, to have software, international experience was apparently a small group of people. So we put a new strategy together around how we were going to do international. And as Robin said, we rolled out 22 countries in less than 2 years. So I learned a lot of things during that time, mostly that your keyboard can make a really good pillow. During those days, it was pretty exciting. When the site went down, we were at the office for 3 days. We were not allowed to leave. And we actually had, and I can tell this story, we had a war room that was about the size of this room. There was whiteboards all the way around, including the ceiling, and we had cots in there and library ladders. So you would actually, lay down and you'd have stuff above you to think about for the next day or whatever you were working on. I learned a lot during that time, a lot about what to do and a lot about what not to do. As I said, Pets.com got about 3 cents out of every nickel. eBay got about 9.5 cents out of every nickel. That was really cool, and that taught you a lot of good discipline about how to structure a business plan, how to look to monetize, and how to really focus on your customers and what their needs are. Because let me tell you, when the eBay customer group got together, and they were pretty vocal because we had community boards, right? The start of social media, that they were able to really dictate to us when they weren't happy, and that drove our stock price way down. So listen to customers. So with international, we had some pretty big, hairy, audacious goals, and I know that's not really a Canadian term. It certainly was in the Valley in those days. But it's a notion of setting big, big targets. I know Mark yesterday was talking about dreaming big and thinking way into the future. So we had 2 simple things at eBay. One was our mantra, one was our big, hairy, audacious goal, was to create a global economic democracy. So we wanted to break down trade barriers, currency barriers, allow people to trade with each other around the world, people who would never have had a chance to connect in any way before. And our key value, which is the other important piece, was that we believe people are basically good. And if you operate your business on that premise, you deal with the bad guys behind. The press like to talk about the bad stuff. Okay, so a few people tried to sell their kidneys. We'll deal with that. It was just PR. But we worked on that behind the scenes. And I think the thing the public never picked up on was the fact that, yes, there was a bit of fraud, but the fraud rate was 25 transactions out of every million. So less than 1/4% of dealing with people you never met in person. Do you know the average shrinkage rate in a normal offline store? They budget between 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%, depending on what the company is. We were 1/4%. So the fact that we believe people were basically good allowed people to operate within that ecosystem and trust each other, because we promoted trust as the beginning of those relationships. So I want to put this up here. This is a patent that we got for a search algorithm in trying to predict what people would buy in the future based on not only their past buying habits, but what they've been looking for, who they were connected with. And the only reason I put this up there is because I think there's a lot of educators in the room, right? And there was a thing in the news a couple weeks ago about how some of the schools in Calgary were going to take out achievement awards. And I was appalled by that. Because as much as it's really cool to have, patents that millions of people use every day, this hangs in the public area of the PayPal office, in the outdoor area. Having that where people can see it is way more validation for me than anything else. Any money, obviously eBay owns the patent, so they make a whole lot of money off that. eBay inventor's jacket and their bonus, but the fact that that's public to me is really, really cool. So as educators, please keep those achievement awards in your curriculum and promote your students when they do good stuff, because it does inspire them to do more. So Robin yesterday said he wished he'd kept a faceplant, and I was so torn about not only which faceplant to talk to you about, but which image to use. So I kind of like this. And you learn a lot more from the faceplants than you do from the good stuff, because you think you're really successful, but in fact you're just mostly lucky. And after my eBay time, 5 of us from the early days of eBay, we on the billing side, on the infrastructure side, and on the strategy side. Myself, I'm in product, which is the bridge between technology and business. We got together and we thought, there's a big problem out there right now in payments. At the time, this is the mid-2000s, and Visa was charging about 68 cents for every transaction, plus 3 or 4% on top of that. So at about 99-cent iTunes transaction, they were getting about 70% of it. So we were looking at micropayments and how we would aggregate that and kind of beat Visa at their own game. And our target market was the MMOG, which is the multi-massive online gaming space. So we put this team together, we got a business plan together, we had product together, we had LOIs from Sony and EA. This was going to change the world. We were down to a $5 million VC round with a major VC in the Valley. And it was down to checking references. And there are no NDAs in the Valley, which I laugh about in Calgary because people want you to sign an NDA to basically say good morning to them. And anyway, and everyone is connected in the Valley. So the senior vice president who was managing our account at the VC firm said, "Oh, 5 eBay people, this is great. Let me call over to Maynard Webb, the COO of eBay, and get a referral from you guys." So he calls Maynard, and Maynard says, "They're doing what?" The next day, PayPal announced that they were doing exactly what we were doing, and we were squashed like the mosquito we were. And PayPal never did actually build that product, but we obviously went away. So that was tough because we put a lot of time, a lot of money into that. But we learned an awful lot from that, and it's all the trust I learned at eBay was taken away also by eBay. So there's some interesting lessons learned through time, and I think Mark did a really good job with some of them yesterday. There's some issue about whether or not this is actually a true quote or not. But what's critical about this is that don't listen to the cynics. They're out there. They will tell you that you can't do what you're doing. And I think Mark stole this quote from me, and I thought long and hard yesterday or last night about, do I leave this in or not? So you know the answer to this one. But Warner Brothers. So this is really fascinating because it really speaks to the fact that you don't have all the right answers, and you need a team around you And your vision, as much as you're the boss or the CEO of a company, you might not have all the right answers. So you do need that team around you. And good old Thomas Edison, monetization is key. You know, inventing for the sake of inventing is fun, but if you're not building to solve a market need, it's not a business. And an invention is not innovation. Innovation is only when you take an invention, apply it to a market need, and then create a business around it. And Thomas Edison again, there are no rules. I kind of like to live my life a little bit this way, sorry Pete. It does get me into a fair amount of trouble, but it also allows you to think about things in different ways, such as this moment. And this is a really interesting moment. I'm not sure this photo has ever been published anywhere, but this was, we were waiting for the perceived winner of this election to actually concede, and he refused to concede until the last ballot or the last box was counted. But we ran this campaign not like a political campaign. We ran it like a startup. We had a team of 6 to 8 core people, an awful lot of other people who volunteered, but the core team was really tight, really small. And we had all the elements of a great startup. We had a market that was ready for change and wanted a new product. We had the right ideas at the right time in the candidate. And we had the team that broke the rules and made it happen. We also employed, and I know a lot of people will say we won this election on social media. That's not true. We won that election in a number of things, but we got the message to the people in the format and the method that they wanted it. And we got it to them where they are. And the polls were all wrong because they were using telephone polling. Well, who sits at home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon answering their landline? How many people here still have a landline? You know, so the polls were way wrong. We knew 3 weeks before the election that we could win based on our trend. We had a lot of data as well. We just needed to make sure we had enough runway to pull it off. We had more than enough. But it was a fabulous exercise in running other parts of your life like a startup. So I'll talk to you a little bit now about the power of the crowd. And we started developing the concept of crowd and crowd behavior in my eBay days. We employed it certainly in the Ninchi campaign. And now focusing a little bit more on how we use the crowd to drive product and to raise money. And I put this slide up, I put this picture in a couple days ago, and I looked at it last night and I went, oh, does it look like that guy's giving the finger to the crowd? Regardless, I thought, oh, we didn't know. It's good for a laugh. So working on a little company now, part of, so I like to say, spend 3 days a week on, something Robin didn't say, but I've been appointed to the WPS panel on the future of commercialization and research. So I spend about 3 days a week on that, 3 days a week at Innovate Calgary, and about 3 days a week on startups. And someone said, Rebecca, you're 9. And I said, yeah, but I changed to metric weeks years ago. So there's a young company here in town called GNS3, 2-person company, started as a university project in France, a master's project. Ended up here, and they've been slowly, quietly building up their user base, their community, and their technology. So the company's never had any money. They've monetized the site currently through ads, and it's allowed them to self-fund to this point in time. So we put together a little plan about 2 weeks ago and said, well, what if we started using those existing customers? Let's see if they're willing to pay for the next version of the software. It's currently open source, free. And so we used CrowdTilt, and we put together we wanted to do an auction and see where the price would sell, because an auction is always a perfect market, right? You bring in people, and the price levels out at what the market will bear. We couldn't actually do that because of limitations in the payment system. We thought, okay, let's put in a number of different tiers and see who goes to where, see if we can gather some data on what we can start to charge for this in the future. So midnight, last Tuesday night, a week ago, we started the campaign, and wouldn't you know it, we crashed the crowd tilt servers. The demand was so high, they were not prepared for it. So it took us about 15 minutes to actually get it back up and going. And when I was finally able to get online, this was the result. So in the first couple of minutes, and I'm blessed, and I'll have to look up here. So we had 699 customers, and what's that number? 19,000 in the first 10 minutes. So that, oh, this is good. So we kept clicking. I've never hit refresh on my laptop so many times, at 1 and 2 in the morning. So it kept clicking up and up. And we actually reached our whole target, so we'll go back to that one, within about an hour and a half. And up. So we're about 7 days in right now. And so that was $150,000. I can check for you right now and tell you where we are. And we are at, refresh, we are officially at, we just hit 500% funded and $175,000. So, the really interesting thing about this exercise was that, when we go back for 1 second, if you do the math, the average transaction value there is about $30, $31, right? We offered people the ability to donate $5, $9, $25. They donated more than that. So we sold out of the $25 package, but before that, so the $25 package and the $75 package are actually the same thing, but you could pay the $25 to get in fast because we wanted to generate a lot of traffic and buzz around it. We had 1,000 people choose the $75 one, even though the $25 one was still open because they wanted to give us more money. So it was really a fascinating exercise. We have a lot of data around this, and these people are paying actually to be part of the beta test for the next version. They're paying to be our testers. This is beautiful. So where we take this, we don't know. But we now have enough money to develop the next round of software, and without having to dilute the company and take in investors. And so the people using the software are all around the world. That was really interesting. $25 for a guy in China is really a lot of money. But people, they've built their business on this. So we see real value. Now we can turn this into a huge company here in Calgary that can be anchored here, can start to grow here, start to hire people here, and hopefully spin off other companies too. We'll roll through some of these. I put a few of these comments up because I'm still wowed by how people love this software and what they're doing with it. I guess I didn't take out as many as I thought I did. So how do you make that dream a reality? And it's pretty easy. I moved to Calgary about 6 years ago, and I thought, where are my people? I moved here because it's Canada, and I needed to come back to Canada. But I came back to Calgary because it was booming, and there were a lot of really interesting and smart people here. So how do we take that and turn that into a longer-term sustainable ecosystem where we grow here and we don't go through that boom and bust cycle that we're so comfortable with? So we've got an awful lot of things happening in Calgary right now. But yeah, why here and why now? So Calgary, in the last 3 years, last 4 years, has really become a different place. People are coming together. When I came here, it was really interesting because there were lots of people working in technology. None of them spoke to each other. Everyone was afraid that someone might steal their idea. Everyone wanted to partner with each other because they wanted to go in it alone. And as Canadians, we have that. It's like, I want to be the hero, but I want to make sure it's perfect before I launch it into market because somebody might actually pick it apart or find something wrong with it. And we tend to miss the market because we're so focused on being perfect. So let's stop being perfect and let's work together. So why Canada? Now, what sort of parallel universe are we living in when this, how come we're out I'm gonna sync, okay. I'm still editing. Aha, what sort of parallel universe are we living in when this is the headline in a Canadian newspaper? Canada has the lowest business tax rates. Who ever knew that would be possible, right? So we have this environment here that's starting to grow, starting to be more attractive to business. We have companies, we have organizations that are starting to show up here that are co-working and collaborative and helpful and mentoring. We've got, still way out of sync. And we've got Innovate Calgary, which is really growing, and I'll give a shout out to Pete. He's here somewhere. Behind the party. There he is. And Pete has shown amazing leadership in Innovate Calgary and what we can do in the future. And there's a whole new campaign at Innovate Calgary, and I asked you to look at our new website that just launched this week. And it's built around just ask. So talk to people, just ask questions. Don't be afraid. And if we don't know something, we're happy to listen to you and help make it better. We want to hear what your needs are so we can help you grow in the future. Oops, I'm going backwards. Okay. Technology, I'm not good at. So, and I don't know how much time I have here, but, I'm down to 42 seconds. I could have been watching you. So the tech sector is really big, but what astounds me about this is that we're only 10% of the regional employment. Let's get that number up, because I think we deserve to. And there are 1,500 companies around. Pete, I don't know what happened to that. It was supposed to be all animated. But there are a lot of companies here already, but let's work on them. Now, I'm going to end with this because this is fascinating. I found this online last night, and it tracks the words in job listings. So, gurus are out, awesome is in. So be awesome, think big, dream big, and then pull a team together to make it happen. And I had a video to show you, the new Google India one. I don't have time, but please go look at it. And it talks about how this technology, how Google has changed the world, but how we use that technology. And the generation of today starts from a completely different place than we did. So let's help those people move from the new normal to what the future can be. So, thank you very much, everyone. Questions?
We have time for a few questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Sure, hello.
This constantly amazes me about how people will invest in something without knowing what it does. You didn't say anything about what that did. I study computer science and machine learning. I'm interested. I have no idea. How can people do that? Is it sociology or is it?
I'll tell you what it does. And I didn't want to go too much into the details of that because apparently I was running out of time. But a great question, because that software for GNS3 is a graphical interface between your network. So it's a graphic network simulation. It's actually emulation. It allows you to connect your network virtually. And you can test it, and so a lot of people use it for their CCNP and CCIE, because the only workaround is to actually buy the physical hardware and test it that way. So, so the people who actually invested in are people who are using it. That's a good question. Any others? I thought I saw him somewhere else back there. Yes. No, you were just scratching, waiting. Yeah, scratching. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Oh, no? Okay. Thank you.